Gotcha! Look, I'm trying. Ah! You're right there! So quiet for a disproportionately, strapping, statuesque. You have kind of a, What? In there? You must be kidding. No way. Absolutely not. First of all, I'd love to, of course, but look, too bad about the fence. Rats. Oh well. What are you gonna do? What's happening right now? Hey, listen. Those little children. If you donate your old toys to them...
I don't make toys. Not anymore.
You have a gift, my friend. Birdhouses are nice and all, but come on, those hands were meant for making...
I said no!
Come on, work with me here. Picture the possibilities. Look, woodwork would go here.
No.
And here, clockwork with all the gears and the cog for you to tinker with all day.
Stop it.
And in this corner, row after row of shiny tools of all
Wait,
shapes
don't
and
touch
sizes,
that.
impeccably organized for you.
No!
No! We'll just blindfold the reindeer so they don't get dizzy. That's all. I'm kidding. It's great. It's nice.
Hello, Jesper.
Dad? What? Sorry, let's talk outside. It's a little cramped in here. Really? You're gonna go for the guilt trip now?
Smash those toys to pieces!
What happened to him after that? How? Come on. Keep it together.
Alfredo, please, if you could introduce yourself.
Yes. Hello, everybody. I'm Alfredo Cassano, 2D animator and storyboard artist from Italy. I am based in Torino currently, which is a town in the north of Italy. And yeah, what you just saw in my reel was 2/3 of what I've been allowed to show from my production on Klaus. It took me 1.5 years to animate about 3 minutes and something of movie, and you just saw around 2 minutes of it. The experience on Klaus was fantastic. I've been in touch, in very close contact with Sergio Pablos as a director, and the team in every department was made by almost the very best, I would say, the very best in Europe and in the world. So the level around me was very high, and it was at the same time inspirational and almost scary on the other hand. On the movie, I was mainly responsible for Jesper, which is the postman, the protagonist of the movie. And during the production, at some point, I have been asked to change position and become a lead animator on Jesper, still staying on the same character, because there were new animators coming in and we needed to be a lot faster in order to meet the final deadline. So I was helping these new animators to bring their scenes on model. If you want, I can talk about my previous experience before Klaus, or if you have any questions, guys, you can ask me about my animation career right before we start watching the students' reels and commenting them. So just please tell me what you would like to.
I think, yes, I think you can tell like a few words what you did before, like Secret of Klaus, and yeah.
Yes, so I started my animation career in Ireland starting in a small studio in Dublin. And then I moved to this studio was called Barley Films, where I really started doing the first animation, my first animation steps. And then I moved to Cartoon Saloon, which is right now one of the most important animation studios in Ireland, where I started on a TV show called Skunk Fu. And then I moved, starting as an animator on The Secrets of Kells, which was my very first big job. And that was animated in pencil and paper. After that, I moved back to Italy and I started freelancing as a storyboard artist. So mainly, if I can make if I wanted to sum up my career, I did around 60% storyboards for TV shows, and the rest was animation for feature films or smaller projects. The other movie I worked on is Song of the Sea, always with Cartoon Saloon. So as soon as I heard a few years ago that they were about to make Klaus, because I saw the trailer, I sent my application and I did an animation test, and that is how I got hired. One more thing, maybe I started animation quite late, at a late age. I was 27 years old, I think. Before that, I was trying to pursue the music career. I have a piano back there, you can see. But at some point, I realized that animation could be a better job, so I switched. But I can still play. All right, I think we might start watching the students' reels, or maybe you still have some other questions on myself. I'm here to answer any questions.
Thank you so much. We will start with the introduction of the students, and then we'll move on to the markings.
Okay.
Alfredo, do you see the chat? Just because I'm sharing the translation about the girls.
Okay, and I'm watching it now. I'm watching at it now. I'm sorry, I wasn't aware of
it's
that
all right.
right now.
Thank
Okay.
you. Okay, now we're moving on to marking. So whom would you like to start with?
Okay, we can start with, I guess it's Milena, maybe, the exercise that starts with Edna mode from The Incredibles.
Okay, so I think we're just going to show the reel. Just let me quickly translate.
Look at me, I'm not capable. I haven't been an agent for 30 years. You're insane. No, I can't do it.
You have to do it, Rachel.
Okay, Alfredo, we are back and we can start with the marking. And if you wanted to share your screen, you can now. Thank you.
Okay, so let me find the button, screen 2. And I think you can see my Cintiq now. I'm scrolling on Milena drawings.
Yes.
I hope you can see my
perfectly.
drawovers there. I will use a red pen like a t-shirt. No, I'm just kidding. No, this is just because I teach at school since 2011, so I become like, starting to be like a real teacher with the red pen. And it's just a joke. Okay, so first of all, I want to congratulate with all the students for their work, even the students that we are going to watch their work later. They've all done a great job. I can see the effort and their will to become good animators. All right, so I have just a few comments on Milena's reel. Let me just go to the exercise, the one with Edna here. It's very well done. The only comments I would have here are about you could somehow improve the arcs and the timing, making somehow simpler than the way you have done it. These are this one with Edna is an acting scene. It is very important to understand in acting scenes that there are some drawings that are more important than others because they are, for example, the extremes. It's the could be the starting pose and the final pose. They are more important than the drawings that are in the middle for us to approach the scene. I will explain what I mean. I mean, in the end of the work, all the drawings will have the same importance. So there is no drawing that is more important than the other. But for us to approach the scene, we have to choose which are the drawings that we need to start from and end to, and then use those main drawings, those main keys to decide what is in the middle. Sometimes, for example, I see that between the main keys, you drew other drawings and almost if you were animating straight ahead. So if you, for example, decide, let me just do another layer here. Okay, so let's say we have a starting point that is this one, and then we have an end point that is this one. We can smoothly pass from this drawing to this drawing, maybe adding one breakdown in the middle, which could be this drawing here. So we would have a key, and a breakdown. And the arc has to be as simple as possible between these drawings so that we would have a similar progression like this. You can see from, yeah, please translate, sorry. The way you animated this suggests that you somehow faced too many problems in once. And for example, let me just scroll here. It is important to not to try and control too many things at once, because in each drawing we have to decide where everything is in the character. So it is better to decide to take these kind of decisions on the main drawings and then connect them. A good principle that you can find on the Eric Goldberg book is that you have mainly, this is a very, how can I say, it's an easy way to describe it, maybe too oversimplified, but we can sum it up to this. Please translate, and then I'm gonna draw a scheme. So let's assume that key number 1 is the starting point, and key number 4 is the destination point. Number 2 would be an anticipation drawing. It means that it kind of creates the anticipation for what will be the action following. Number 3 would be what I call an accent drawing. It means that we start moving from number 1, we go towards the anticipation, and then we slam into drawing number 3, accelerating into it. And then from the drawing number 3, which is what I call the accent drawing, we could take our time to settle. And this is the area where most of the work usually goes. We settle, slowing down to the final position. This is a very simple scheme that not always applies to all the cases. Sometimes we can just go from, we can sometimes not use the anticipation, or we can go straight to the final destination. I mean, it can change, but it is a very common scheme to explain that the, the main goal here is to simplify the arc to have a very round and simple path to follow, and check
I
that
think
everything follows that path. One more thing, this is going to be more specific, and it's going to, it is just something I noticed on this animation, and I would like to point out. It's about the character teeth. This is a sort of design that doesn't allow any mistake on anatomy. It's not a design that allows flexibility. So if you know that in your scene you're going to show the teeth, for example, let's take this drawing, it is important to remember that this arc, the upper part of the teeth is fixed because it is stuck in the skull. So the distance between the upper teeth and the nose, for example, should never change. We could have a small flexibility there, but overall it should be fixed. The lower teeth instead can get far away from the upper arc because the jaw will be able to open, right? So this distance is mobile, it can change. So if you have a drawing with a smiling drawing where we can see the teeth, and then after that, we do another drawing, we have to be careful that the lips are, if the mouth changes shape like this, we have to be careful that these teeth have to follow the same consistency. So this is good, but we cannot do something like this and then this in the next drawing. Just be careful about the size of the teeth and their orientation. If the head here is oriented this way, also the teeth have to follow this axis. I don't know if that's clear, but it should be clear enough. If the character changes direction and then the axis become this, then also the teeth would follow. Let's go to the next scene because I have something to say about that, and then I think we can move on to the next students because we have very short time. But I really care to talk about this because it interests the other students as well. I've seen similar issues with, I mean, many times, so it's important to talk about this. What I see here, I understand the acting, I understand the intentions, but somehow you skipped one problem, which is in betweening poses. So if you have a hand that appears here and then goes there, you should also, after drawing the hand here and the hand there, describe how it gets there. But in general, I can see here a problem of approach. You should treat the character as one whole thing. And instead, what I see here is that you move the body parts as a little bit as if they are disconnected from each other. For example, if you look at the head position here, this character is doing a lot of things with his hands, right? So whatever she does with the hands, sometimes, often it should influence the position of the rest of the body. If I do, hey, you, like something like that, I'm using my hand. So this is driving the action, but it is also influencing my whole body. So I would try and draw it in a natural way. So if, say, we have this anticipation here, this is just an example. It's not really connected to your scene specifically, but it's just to make my point clear. I'm animating this pointing gesture. If I did this, I think it would be a mistake because I made a very straight arm without making the body participate to that motion. This is stronger, see? So you could also have a slight change of axis here, and maybe the other arm could reflect some action here. It could go a little bit up. Right, it is just an example, but it's to explain that whatever you move will since it's connected to the rest of the body, will influence. It's something you cannot ignore. I don't know if we have more time on this or if we have to move to the next exercises. I think that the overlap on the skirt, it is very well made. You applied the air bubble principle quite correctly. So whenever we have an overlap, the principle is that, like, we have on a flag here, right? It is like this is the air bubble that can we can imagine like an air bubble that is moving this way, and so the next drawing. So this makes it simpler to approach it. It's like there are many bubbles. You did this very well on the skirt and on the hair. The only problem here is the change of speed in the background. Whenever she changes direction with the skates, the background somehow slows down too much. Anything else? I don't have many comments to do on this one because it is much simpler to approach than an acting scene. This one instead, it's very ambitious. I don't know if you acted out this in front of a camera. Did you shoot yourself with a camera before doing this? It is very important. I don't normally use live references unless I have to do something very complicated. But what is important using live reference is that it's not like simply reporting what you see on the video on your animation. You have to rather understand what's happening and rebuild it on your scene. So just to sum it up, I think you should, in this exercise, the acting is really understandable. It just looks a little bit stiffer than it could be. So I see here the main issue is just a lack of harmony between shapes. One shape doesn't influence the others as much as it should. For example, the head here looks like it's keeping its position in space while the rest of the body is moving. And this is something it's kind of an issue when you have something that is stuck on the same position in the screen and the rest is moving. You will have the effect that, when you pin some paper into the wall, it would look like that part has been stuck in space by some mysterious force while everything else is moving around. That is something we should avoid. Everything should influence. If I do this, my head will go up. If I do that, my head will go down. See, so it should follow. Let's just have a look at these drawings I'm doing. What should be stuck on the same point is the feet, because they're keeping the weight. Here has to be fixed, and here is more free. The more we go far, could be more free. But what I mean is the part that is leading the animation will pull the other parts a little bit, or even a lot, could be. And to avoid the effect that something is disappearing from here and appearing here, you can just make sure you do some nice in-betweens to describe the arc. Because everything that moves from point A to point B, if it has a weight, takes some time to move and then slow down into the final position. And usually for us, since we have joints on the bones, usually our arcs are round. They are almost never perfectly straight. Unless we want to assess that, we usually have round arcs. One last advice for you is I use the stopwatch a lot. So I stopwatch my action to see how much it takes for everything to happen. So if I have to do a gesture, say a head turn, I stopwatch it. And then I translate that time into duration in frames. So I know how long it takes for the moving part to get to a stop. I don't know if we are doing questions now or if we are going to do them at the end.
Questions in the end. We have to move on to the next person, please.
Okay.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. And congratulations for your great work.
Alfredo, who are we doing next?
All right, we can now watch Xenia. I don't know if I pronounced it well.
Xenia, yeah.
Right,
Oh.
where's my mouse here? Okay. All right, so let me open the file. Should be this one.
Okay, we're watching the demo reel now first.
Okay.
Okay, now we're back and we can look at the work.
Okay. So I just wanted to make a few comments about arcs here in general, and also talk a little bit about timing. This is very nice. The first part of the reel is for me more interesting than the second part where we have music. The second part works very well, so I don't have many comments to do on that. All right, so let's go back to the first part here.
Итак, вернемся к первой части.
What I feel is missing, even though it works very well, but it could be improved by working a little bit on anticipation and a better use of timing. For example, I can see this compression drawing here, which is very nice, it's very correct. But you could make that position last a little bit more in order to give more compression. I understand that the character is rolling on the skate, so I'm not saying to stop it here for longer. I'm saying that character could compress, could start the compression maybe here already. This is even more true for the third character here. The way before he falls, he could have some more contrasting pose. The concept of contrast is very important throughout everything that we do. It could be a time contrast, it could be a space contrast, but contrast allows us to see what is before and what is after and feel the difference. I have something to add about arcs here, which is something that I'm really insisting and careful about. Now let's take the red pen now. Let's check the position of this arm. So I'm going to use one frame to drive all the arms. I'm talking just about this part of the arm. If you check this progression here, it would suggest that the next drawing should be here, for example. Let's check if it goes there. Now we have the arm here. I'm not saying that this is a mistake, but now I would expect, since there has been a change of direction, that the next arm could be here. But the next time the arm appears is here. So you can clearly see that this arc is somehow interrupted here. I don't know if that's clear, but it is like doing this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You have to make sure that each part of the body of the whole character, each single part, has a smooth arc. You can help yourself by drawing the arc underneath and then following it. I could, for example, check the the head position instead of the arm. So let's talk about these axes here, for example, these axes, and see if the progression is smooth. Now we have a slight tilt in the head here. So I expect the next to be a little bit even more tilted, but I feel here that that is not really happening. So actually here, I drew the axe a little bit off, but this is what is really happening here. So
Но я немножко некорректно сначала нарисовала, но теперь вы видите, что здесь происходит.
So that is arc too. So if I have something that is slightly rotating, each frame, each new frame is moving in a certain way, it should be, that movement should be consistent. This is not, of course, a general rule that we have to follow all the times, but we have to be aware of what is the effect if we don't follow the rule. Because everything we do has an effect on the viewer. So we will be successful if the effect that the viewer has is what we meant in the first place. So I would, apart from this case here, this specific case, I would suggest you to show, all of you, to show your work to people, especially people that is not in animation, and ask them what they see. If you notice that there is a slight difference in their response between what you wanted to show and their response, it means that it's our fault as animators. It's always the animator's fault if the audience doesn't understand. Another arc issue here, for example, I can see it in the hips. If you check the body position here, the body has this attitude here, and this is okay. Now it changes. Now it's still not a mistake. We cannot still call it a mistake. It depends on what happens on the next. So after we have these, I would expect something like this. And let's see what happens next. We go back to the first attitude. So you have the character that has the same attitude throughout almost the whole arc, and then it changes attitude and then goes back to the first attitude. It's kind of a bump. You could have this transition in the attitude a little bit less abruptly, less suddenly. I would change this drawing here probably. So instead of having this sudden change, I would in between into it. I would probably do something like this in the middle. In general, this is a problem of arc. Let's go
Alfredo, I'm very sorry to keep you on track, but we have to also wrap up soon and move on to the next person.
Okay, can I just give a quick comment on the next scene? Sure. This one on the sword. I just see here that the timing could be improved, so the anticipation drawing could last more and then go faster onto the pull pose. Super quick thing, last thing is the position of the hands. It is a little bit unnatural. You wouldn't grab something like this. This would be more natural because you can apply much more force this way. All right, I think we can move on.
And Alfredo, who is it going to be next?
We could watch Nadia showreel now.
Great.
You are never to speak to her again. Now you are rivals. You are never to speak to her again. Now you are rivals.
Okay, Alfredo, we are back, and let's look at the next work.
Yes. Congratulations again on your work. I have a few comments on some things that we could call small mistakes, but it's normal. I've done all the mistakes that you have done, guys. This is for you all to just not get discouraged if I'm pointing out some issues here. So I see that you have a very good understanding of anticipation and squash and stretch in these exercises. But there is some issue about volumes, mainly.
No.
Let's go straight to this exercise, for example, because it has the biggest issue, and then we can move on to the other ones. So we look at this guy who's trying to raise the bottle here, and then he wants to bring it there and pour the liquid into the other bowl. When I talk about volumes, look what I mean. Let's draw the character as it's here. This is a very understandable and good pose. But then if we go ahead and we check the size of the character later on, you can easily see that the character somehow became smaller. So there is a slight inconsistency in the size of it. It is really important that we keep track of the length of each part of the body, and that has to stay consistent throughout the scene. Especially when we bend an arm, we tend to forget the length and draw the parts of the arm longer or shorter according to what we need, but that's a mistake. Especially in this case, the character is actually coming closer, because if I draw the perspective grid here, so I would rather draw it bigger, if you know what I mean. It would make more sense to draw the character slightly bigger here, because it's coming closer to us. Otherwise, it will look that it's becoming even smaller than it looks. Also, there is a pose here that I wouldn't keep for so long, which is this one. If we are keeping on ourselves something that is very heavy, we would rather find ourselves in this position, because we would like to compensate for the weight that is pulling us this way. You can, of course, have a pose like the one you drew, which is more like this one, but then time gets in the way, so you have to be sure that this one doesn't last too long, because you would never be able to keep that position for a long time. So I cannot say that this drawing, sorry, let's just show this one you drew. I cannot say that it is absolutely wrong in itself, but I think it lasts too long. See, it lasts a lot on this attitude here before recovering with the other foot, and still it is a little bit unbalanced towards the front. So I would rather have this sort of progression, this sort of walk, rather than this. Let's just get to the other exercise, the walk that you have done here, which is a very nice walk cycle. But there are some small issues here too, which make it look slightly stiff. The front view works better than the side view, in my opinion. I would be careful about the leg that is going to take the next step. So in this case, it's this leg here. What happens here it is kind of an optical illusion, an optical mistake that makes us swap the legs in the same position on the screen, and that kind of throws me off. There is almost a exchange of position here between the legs. You could probably draw this leg here a little bit more ahead. So at some point we can see if this is the silhouette before, at some point it should somehow close to a smaller silhouette and then open again. Red line I'm drawing is the path of the heel. So this part of the foot. Also, I would suggest you to, I don't know if this is your first walk cycle, but if it is, I would suggest you to work on a real space walk cycle rather than an on-the-spot walk cycle. This is because working on a walk cycle on the spot, there are too many problems to take care about all of a sudden. Let's talk about one more, I would call it issue or mistake. Let's keep track of the arms here. This is correct. You bent the arm where the joint is. But look how you did to the other arm. Look what you did here. It almost looks like the joint is somewhere here. See? Instead, you could have maybe drawn that way. Rather than this way, maybe this way would have worked a little bit better because it's more consistent with the other arm. Also, I would suggest for the arm that is going backwards, this arm here, I would suggest you to draw it bent. Otherwise, it will look too stiff. The arm that goes backwards is less active than the arm that is going ahead, that is going forward. One more comment is about the feet position in the side view here. This is a profile view. From this profile view, it looks like that the distance between the feet is a little bit too much. Almost as if the character is walking this way, you know, with the two open legs, which you didn't in the front view, which works a lot well. But if you really turn that in profile, you will see that the feet are almost on the same line rather than showing that much distance. Let's go to the next exercise here, which is very nice. I only have a comment about this, how it ends. I think you could simplify the animation of how it settles into the last position. So let's draw over. Let's look at how it goes. It kind of gets stuck into the last position a little bit abruptly. So I would, let's draw some heads here. We have the head here. We have another one here. Then we have one almost close to the previous one. And then another one very close. And then we do a bigger step. And then after, this is the last one. So I can see that enlarging this progression, it would be like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. While in your place, I would have, in your situation, I would have done something like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is to show that the character is accelerating here, going a lot fast here, and then stopping the head weight into the last position. Edward, were you saying something?
Yeah, I'm sorry, Alfredo, we have to move on.
All right. But this is a very common example. Whenever you move something, especially the head, which is a lot heavy, it's like, I don't know how much a head weighs, but it's a big weight. it takes time for it to slow down. It doesn't take much to start moving it also fast, because our muscles in the neck are very strong, the body is strong, but then it takes time to settle it into the last position. You have to work a lot on the final in-betweens. See what I did here. It accelerates, gets fast, and then it slows down. All right, so we should look at the next, right? Okay, I would say we should probably watch Rita Gurskaya exercise.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, and very good work.
And we're live. So let's look at Rita's work. Alfredo.
Yes. Let me open the file. We are still watching the old one. Again, very good reel. Congratulations for your work on this one. I see you are more into realistic animation. All right, so the comments I have on this reel are similar to the older comments I have done on the other ones. So let's check this bit here. Yeah, sorry, my playback here is going very slow, but it's because I have a lot of things open. But I'm confident that the reel has been showed already in the right speed. All right, so what I would comment here, even though you have a very realistic style here, I would try and push the poses a little bit more. For example, you can make the use of the silhouette here even stronger. You know, you could push poses to communicate, to convey more force, more tension into them. You know, you want this character to be very aggressive, so could get very, very tense here in the body. So your drawing is correct, but you could push a little bit more. Whenever you find that you're drawing something that is almost straight, like this arm here, for example, wonder if it is the case to draw it completely straight. Because what has to work is not the drawing. What has to work is the animation. So if drawing a straight arm and then a bent arm would help you communicate the action better, it doesn't matter if that specific drawing looks a little bit awkward, as long as it's anatomically correct. I can make a very pertinent example here. For example, the character enters with a bent leg, and then the leg is bent because it's supporting the weight here. So I would rather make the character enter with a straight leg, so that we could see the change in the shape of the leg as the character is catching its weight. And therefore the impact between something that is soft and something that is hard. So we need to show at some point that our soft object is at the most stretch before it changes shape. And this has again to do with the concept of contrast. So we have very big contrast here. It would be a smaller contrast if I did this. I'm not saying that this is wrong. It's just a little bit weaker because there is less contrast, less energy in this drawing than in this drawing. And also the illusion of something hard, a hard surface under the leg will be given by the fact that this and this point and the next drawing will happen exactly on the same spot. So at some point we will have to see that these drawings all have something in common. It is an optical illusion that shows that it's like an invisible force that deforms the shape. So let's go ahead and check the animation here. It's very good. I understand what's happening. The only thing I would say here is that even in this case, there are some volume issues. So for example, if I draw over this drawing, and I compare it with another one later on, you can easily see that the character has somehow, it became bigger. I mean, that's the feeling. You might want to show that the character is getting compressed and so his silhouette becomes longer. But what the character gains in length, it has to lose it in width. So I can stretch, say this is a character that is falling down and I want it to become this long when it falls on the ground. I can do that. In animation, you can do whatever you want, but you have to be careful about the volumes. You know, if you check the volume of this character and then you check the volume on this character, on this drawing, they have to be the same. And this rule applies to not only the whole figure, but also the character parts. So check the length of this part here. And then check this.
I think it is this.
You can see that this is longer than this. So you have to be careful that unless there is a change in perspective, so you have a leg that is shown perfectly in profile and then the leg is shown this way, so the silhouette gets smaller. So if I have a cylinder here and then I draw it shorter, I would rather be careful and draw something like this to show some rotation so that the apparent length changed, but it's justified by its rotation. So if the leg stays in the same profile view, we don't have any reason to change the length of the limbs, of the body parts. I would.
Alfredo, we have to move on. We have to finish, I think, feedback soon because time is running.
Okay. I don't have I don't have much more to say about this.
Yes.
Can I just add some one small note? It is just about animating complex heads. I saw. Oh, sorry. No, I have a much more important note here. Sorry. The note about the head is just. Please. Let me just find the exercise with Mickey Mouse and Minnie. Anyway, no, what I meant about the last note here about animating a head, please never be careful. Oh, there it is, yes. So 1 minute for each note. Be careful about never copying and pasting heads to suggest a rotation. You have to redraw them, especially if the please translate what I just said, and I will add something. Do not copy and
Thank you.
paste on heads, because otherwise it will look too stiff. If you say you have to do this, you have to animate this, and then you try to achieve that by copying and pasting something and just rotating the image, it will not work. You have to redraw it. I can do it very quickly this way. This is not working as well as this. I'm not referring to this exercise. I'm just referring in general to head animation, especially if the design is realistic. You have to work it out by drawing it. Now let's get 1 minute to Mickey Mouse here. Since I really love Mickey Mouse. There is just some volume issues here that I would like to point out. So let's look at this leg here. And the way it became much bigger in the following key. So you have to check between keys that the side stays. It also happens in Mickey Mouse's legs. See how small they are here and how big they become here. It happens to everybody, to every animator. You just have to remember to check that it doesn't happen. Whenever you have a design like this, you can really use squash and stretch, being careful about the volumes, but you can really push the shapes. Always keeping in mind the volumes, that they don't have to change. I think we can move on to the next.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. I would, if I can say something, I would like to, rather than commenting other exercises, I would talk about some general principles that apply to everything, so it can help them more than commenting a single exercise. Do
you mean we skip the swamp reel and you
we can watch it. I really like the swamp short. I don't have many comments on that, so I can point out a little thing, but it's really not worth it. It's very well made. So
I think in the interest of time, maybe it will make sense more to
yes.
give the
Swamp is very nice. Swamp is very nice.
Okay, Alfredo. So we will watch the swamp now, so our viewers can see it. But we can, if really there is no big remarks, we can go into speaking about the general principles which you wanted to mention.
Yes, we can do that. We can skip to the next general
Great, thank
talk.
you.
Yes.
So we'll just roll the reel now, and then we'll do that. Thank you. Okay, Alfredo. So maybe we can talk about the principles which you wanted to mention.
Yes, I think we just saw swamp now in the stream, right? So I want to congratulate the guys for realizing this. It's very well made, and I wouldn't have any comment on it. The design is beautiful, and the animation is very well handled. There could be a little issues here and there, but they are covered by the principles that I talked about. How I do it, I would like to talk about how I work. When I animate a scene, of course, the approach depends on the scene itself. I don't use the same approach regardless. Usually, it's a combination of animation in keys and animation in straight ahead approach. For example, in an acting scene where the character is talking, I usually work in pose-to-pose animation. So I use key drawings. So I would split the two approaches, the key animation and straight ahead. They are both good approaches and need to be combined. Sometimes there will be more key animation into a scene and less straight ahead. Some other times there will be more straight ahead components and less key. I like animation in keys when I need to be sure that I need to keep track of the size of the character, and that I really want to be sure that I start from a pose and that I end on a specific pose. That is a faster approach. That the key animation approach is faster. It gives you more control on silhouettes and strong shapes, and it allows you to work faster, so to produce more footage. The down point of animating in keys is that the final result could be a little stiff. And this is because I'm more connected to the shape and the silhouette of the characters rather than the energy that drives the character. So on the other hand, working straight ahead allows me to keep track of that energy that drives me into the next drawing and the next and the next. So I will be really in touch with that energy, but on the other hand, I will more easily lose track of the volumes and of the strength of the silhouette of the character. The best approach is combining them whenever we feel that we need to, for example, start from strong silhouettes. We will draw nice, strong keys and then try to connect them with a straight ahead approach. The main recipe, but even if there is no recipe, is something that I talked about before in the stream, is that when I work in key animation, I try to find the main 4 moments. Starting point, ending point, anticipation, if any, and an accent drawing where we go with the strongest, where we pass through with the strongest energy. I am writing it down here so it stays written. Check Eric Goldberg. Exactly. It has examples that show very clearly this sort of general approach. One more thing that I really care about is pointing out that as 2D animators, we really need to be able to draw. But once we get to draw the character perfectly, that is our starting point. That is when the fun starts. So our drawing is a tool that we use to get the performance done. So the drawing is the tool and the performance is the goal. Of course, when you get into a production and you have to learn the character, you will need some learning time. There is a learning curve to learn the character, but you should shrink it as much as possible. You should do that as fast as you can. Because when you start to make that character act in your scene, you will have so many problems to solve that if you also have to solve the drawing issues, then it's really overwhelming. So I really need to point out that being able to draw a character perfectly doesn't mean that we are able to animate it. It will just mean that we are able to draw the character. But then we could do a whole lot of wrong acting choices. So let's learn the character as fast as we can, and then let's study its psychology in order to become that character and try to understand how he or she moves. What are the best ways to convey those emotions? For example, if the character is tense, if the character is tired, if the character is energetic and bold, there are ways to communicate and to convey those emotions. What is really important is to simplify our drawings as much as we can and mind the line of action that is inside. So that action line, that energy, will tell us a lot about his feelings. And it will help us to keep everything in harmony, so that all the parts of the character will respond to the same energy. I don't know if I have any time left. I would like to answer some questions if the students have, or if YouTube has some questions. I would like to.
I think it's important part to answer the questions of public and students.
Yes.
Yes.
And so maybe if we can come to this part, it's really cool.
Yeah,
Great, thank you.
I'm ready for that. Yes, I heard something, but it was Russian.
No, they're just asking if the girls have questions. Rita had an experience where she was animating a very action-filled fight scene, and on the point of contrast, she was advised to actually skip the frame where the contact happens with the face, for example, to have the more contrast in the animation.
It could be a solution. It depends on the situation. Sometimes you can have so much contrast that something disappears literally from one point and appears into another point. It is a very good example when you have something that suddenly changes position. I like that boldness, that bold choice to do that, but it has to be motivated. It has consequences, and it has to be prepared. For example, the scheme that I proposed before, that I proposed earlier, like 1, 2, 3, 4, could be could become more extreme by pulling a lot the anticipation, making the anticipation last a lot, and then having this drawing happen here. Let's do an example. Let's say I have to grab my phone, with my hand. So I do drawing 1, anticipation, so top speed, and then I settle on the last pose. This is not an extreme action, but if I have to punch someone in the face, I could have a starting drawing, then a huge anticipation that is big in spacing and long in timing. And then the space that is covered by the punch is so fast that we don't even see how it happened. But the faster this strike is, the bigger will be the consequences on the character that is getting the punch. So it will have a lot of consequences on his body. It's like something like that. So we can get to that bold choices by creating a lot of anticipation and a lot of settle, and then skipping this part here. We don't need to describe it if we properly prepare the action and show the consequences. I don't know if that answered the question. Okay, so you don't have to describe each stage of the punch, for example. You can literally make the hand disappear and appear there in the next drawing. But as long as you prepare it properly, and as long as the consequences are readable. So don't be afraid in general to change the spacing, even in a bold way, like to take a lot of, a big leap, a big jump between drawings. You can do that. You can do whatever you want, as long as you understand that you are using extremes. You are, how to say, bringing the rules to an extreme. Is there any other question?
We would like at this point to say a huge thank you to you, Alfredo.
Thank you.
On behalf of Animation School, we've had a really great response with almost 150 people on both channels watching the stream non-stop. So thank you so much. It's been really useful for everybody who's watching.
That's great.
So the first question we have is, at 27, did you start animating, like start to learn animating, or did you start working at 27, and how did you studied it beforehand? And just to add on to that is, how long did it take you to study animation before you started working?
Okay, I've been drawing my whole life, but not as an animator. I was just having fun drawing. I never really enjoyed actually the process of drawing itself, and I never really particularly loved my own drawings. What I love about the process of drawing is just giving the character some feeling. So what I am really aiming for is the performance rather than the drawing itself. So when I realized that being a musician would have meant being a poor man because I was a classical musician and it was very difficult to get paid for classical music performance. Yeah, I almost had to pay myself to make a concert or change style, maybe learn jazz or something else. I decided to switch to animation at 26. So it took me about 2 years to learn the basic principles and be able to enter an animation studio to work. But it doesn't mean that it takes 2 years to become an animator. It took me a couple of years to figure out how I could enter an animation studio. I'm still learning. I don't feel like I'm good enough yet, you know. So it's a learning process that never ends. And it is one of the most amazing jobs, one of the most incredible experience you can do by working in animation, but also it is one of the most difficult because you have to do a lot of things all together. You have to be able to draw. If you are a 2D animator, you have to be able to draw. You have to be able to make your character act in a fresh, simple, and believable way. You have to know what entertainment is, what is not entertainment. You have to deal with roles, with people. There is a lot of things happening that you have to become good at. But it's a lot of work, but it is also very rewarding. So I encourage the students to work hard and they will soon see the results. Any more questions from the audience?
So you mentioned that you use video references a lot less now than you did before, but what are the tools that you used at the start when you started animating? For example, you were watching others, you were doing recordings. What are other tools that you used to animate better?
I never actually used video reference too much. I did when I was at school, but the results were a little bit stiff, I would say. I'm not saying that I don't recommend using video references. It's actually great, but you should look at the video reference and understand it rather than copy it, so that you can rebuild it. You should get to a point where you learned it so well that you don't need to watch it again. So rather than shooting myself with a camera and watch the video, I would attempt to mimic more. Even sitting on my desk, I would mimic the action, watch myself and feel myself. And then I try to simplify whatever I did. I try to make a simpler version of that, so that the action is easy to understand, it is easy to read. It is really important to keep it simple. In 10 seconds, we don't do a lot of things unless we are very nervous and we do hit a lot of extremes. When we are doing something normal, we don't move much. Whatever we move follows simple rules, and everything we do is connected. So all the body parts move together to accompany each other parts. So if I move a hand, my body will follow. So in a scene, it's very important to find those few drawings, those few keys and breakdowns that convey the action, and then connect them in a nice, smooth way. Oh, if there is any other question, I will. I have time.
So next question we have is regarding somebody who's just starting animation and they are not so good at drawing. Would you recommend that they return and obtain classic art education and learn to draw better? Or are there other ways to work with this issue?
Well, learning to draw well is a long process. So it is a very difficult question because there are people who start very late and then they improve immediately. There are other people who are much slower in the process. So I cannot say without knowing the specific case that is sometimes the case to stop drawing and turn to 3D animation, for example. I wouldn't be able to take such a big responsibility. It doesn't just count where you are. It counts also how fast you are to get to the next point, to the next stage.
Would you say she would need classic education or?
Well, drawing reality is the best way to learn drawing rather than copying other drawings. It's also useful to copy references from other artists that we love, but we don't have to get stuck with a style. We should combine, also be driven by what we love to do. So for example, if I love Glen Keane's drawings and I want to learn to draw like Glen Keane, it could be useful to take some of his drawing and see how he did it, but we shouldn't get stuck to that. That's not how he learned. He learned by drawing from real life, from nature, from statues from Michelangelo or other artists, but mainly from reality. So the same applies for animation. We should learn to animate from reality rather than from other animations. So going back to the question, it's a question I cannot answer without seeing the specific case. It's too much of a responsibility to say stop drawing. Maybe someone is good at drawing. If he keeps working, the next year he will be a great draftsman. So I cannot say. So if after 1 year or two of very hard work, you are still at the same point, maybe I could suggest to stop. But if there is a progression, and it's probably going to be a progression, it may be not the case to stop. I'm very easy to reach. So if she, or I don't remember if it's he or she, but if this user needs to ask me directly later on and send me drawings that I can watch and give feedback to, I would be happy to do it.
The next question is how to achieve a convincing static pose that looks convincing and real, but static.
All right. Well, this is connected to the silhouette of the character. It is really important that the silhouette, a good test is, for example, to make the character completely in black. So we wouldn't see the eyes, the features that are inside the silhouette of the character, and check if that black silhouette works. That this is a very good way to check if the drawing works. If once completely black, it becomes unreadable. It means that we have to change something. This is very much connected to the way we read shapes. And not just we as humans, even animals can do that very well. If we walk this way towards a cat, it will very easily understand that we are threatening it. So it's something we have in common with animals and something that as animals we catch. As Sergio Pablo says, the truth is always in the body language. And so if we can understand a black silhouette, it means we are doing the right thing.
Alfredo, have you ever worked in software called Open Tunes?
No.
And which software do you find most sort of comfortable, convenient to work with?
I worked in Toon Boom Harmony for Klaus, and I found it very easy to use. So right now, Harmony is my favorite to animate. When I do storyboards, I use Storyboard Pro, which is always Toon Boom. I should also mention TV Paint, which is awesome. And in the past, I've been using a lot Flash, which became Animate now, but I'm not using that since I started using Harmony.
What is the best way to convey the form of the character? Is it to break it down to simpler forms, or is it to keep drawing and drawing and drawing to then become really familiar with it?
This is a very good question. As animators, we really need to focus on the construction of the character. So simplify it down, break it down to the simpler, to the very essential shapes that form the character. When I animate, for example, I don't know if you can still see my screen now.
Yes, we can. Yes.
I never, for the first stage, so for when I have a blank screen and I have to make a new rough, I never go more in detail than this, for example. I really want to focus on the line of action and the main construction of the character, no details at all. So this is what I do. No, I'm never getting more in detail than this, because in this way I can really focus on, on the main action without worrying about details. This could be the way I draw hands, for example. It's just a simple arcs. So if you understand the main shapes, then in a second stage, it will be very easy, or I can say very easy, but at least it's going to be easier to tie down the character. And so once I like the action, I can get into the details and keep track of each part. I want to make sure that this part of the nose follows a certain arc. So sometimes I take care of one part at a time. Could be the brim of the hat, for example. But it's really important to focus on the construction first. Now, for example, the brim would be brought down here. So I would need to, and also the hair would go down. And as you can see, I'm trying to keep the volume consistent. So this is how I work. I start very rough. And then I keep track of each part. Always trying to not to lose the energy that is in the drawing underneath. See this nice arc here? I try not to lose that. So basically, this is it. It's really important to focus on the main inside shapes and the main axis, because those axes will bring with them all the details. We can easily check the model sheet to see how distant each detail is from those axes.
Since we have moved on to Klaus, the question is, what did you enjoy the most while working on the project?
The aspect that I enjoyed the most, well, I enjoyed it so much that it would be easier to say what I didn't enjoy, which was moving there and finding a house. Let's try and answer the question. The thing that I liked the most was the relationship between the animator and the director. Sergio Pavlos is really able to explain what he wants, and getting there serving the goal for him and having my scene approved or having a retake was fantastic, because it would be you would learn anyway. Also, one other aspect that I enjoyed a lot was that I was surrounded by incredible talent. So I tried to forget getting scared about that, and I focused on being inspired by them. It was really easy to be inspired by this amount of talent all around me.
And question about inspiration, which animators would you advise to really look out for and to pay attention to, who you find inspiring?
Uh, for me, they were the animators of the Disney old school. So the Nine Old Men, especially the three most iconic ones, Frank Thomas, Ollie Johnston, and Milt Kahl.
May I ask you to write it after so we can post it in the
Yes,
comments?
of course, of course, of course.
I think it'll be easier.
Do I do it now on the chat or?
No,
okay.
we will do it later.
I think they understood. Frank Thomas,
okay.
Ollie Johnston, and Milt Kahl are probably the top 3 animators in history. So they are my references.
The next question is how to find an objective criteria when you're animating to understand the job is complete.
It is a difficult question. I'm not sure I get the meaning of it. What do you mean by a criteria to understand that the job is done? Could you maybe reformulate the question so that I can answer more?
Sure. I think what they meant is like, you know, in a drawing, like, or art piece, when you create something, you do it, and there are, I don't know, if you do a portrait, you understand like that you have to draw certain things, and then it's completed portrait. It looks like it's completed.
Yeah.
So I guess the question is, in terms of animation, what are the objective criteria to understand that the animation in itself is completed as it.
All right.
I think I
understand. I think I understand it now. Well, what I have to deliver as a 2D animator usually is understandable performance, and so the performance has to be convincing. And the other aspect is that if there is another stage after animation, which could be cleanup, for example, I need to provide all the necessary information to the cleanup department. So for example, on Klaus, if you want to know when we call it finished in terms of 2D animation ready for cleanup, is what we delivered and what is visible in our Klaus. For example, in my Klaus reel is what was called finished animation. That could go to cleanup, to the cleanup process.
We're now, because we've been on for a while, going to pick one final question. But I just wanted to ask you from myself, if you wouldn't mind, maybe the guys could send you questions after, and you could respond for those whose questions haven't been answered.
Absolutely,
I mean, it's
absolutely, yes.
Yeah?
Just one thing, sorry, if I will get some questions after the streaming, and I will, of course, answer them, all of them, but I'm just not sure how fast I will be able to do that.
And this can act as one more reason to invite you back again and to hold another session with everybody else.
Absolutely.
And as the final sort of word of inspiration and also a question from yourself, is what do you see the future of 2D animation, and what are the perspectives that lie ahead?
Well, I hope, of course I cannot know, but I think it's going to be better now, especially after Klaus. One thing I'm sure, it's going to take a lot of work to bring down the enthusiasm, because the response to Klaus has been so overwhelming that it appears clear to me, but to everyone else, that people was waiting for a movie like this to be released. And so it will take an evil plan to not have that happening. So I think the people in charge will easily understand that there is a lot of money waiting for them if they make more 2D movies. Of course, it takes a good story to have a lot of enthusiasm. It's not just because it's 2D that a movie is nice. You have to use the best technique to serve a good story. And that's just what happened with Klaus. I hope that will happen again. I'm very optimistic about the future of animation in general and about 2D animation specifically.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alfredo.
Thank you all, guys. It's been a pleasure. I guess we are done, or there is any more questions? You're talking together, and I cannot figure out
Edward.
what.
I'm just saying that I am supposed to be the translator. No, I was just, this was supposed to be the last one, but I will just quickly check.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cassano.
Thank you all. It's been an honor and a pleasure for me to be with you today.
So it's everything, yes. So okay, goodbye. Спасибо
Oh,
всем.
so I was waiting for the translation of what
I was
Ruslan, I
typing.
guess.
Yeah, Sergey
Oh,
was just
okay.
saying thanks to
Yeah. Oh,
everybody.
yes.
Yeah, the
Oh,
screen.
sorry. Yeah, I forgot to read in the chat. Thank you, girls, for your great work. You know, you did a really good job. And the comments that I did, I hope they didn't discourage you in any way. It's normal. I got retakes like those every day when I was on Klaus. So getting comments, getting feedback, if it is something that it's criticism on your work, you have to take that as an opportunity to improve, not as something personal. It means that you're not good at it. It's just part of the process. It's part of being animators to redo, to rework. And for us especially, getting a retake means working a lot more than anyone else